And how is it related to this framework agreement?
Well, I guess in terms of trying to understand the land referral process, you need to understand that in British Columbia, because we never signed treaties with the government, we still own the land, and we have a proprietary right throughout our traditional territory. You know, a lot of Indian people, they think, oh, our land is the Indian reserve. No, it's not full. Yeah, the reserve does belong to us, there's no question about it, but we have two categories of land. One category is the Indian reserve, and the second category is our Aboriginal title and rights territory for the, and it's for the Secwepemc, it's the full range, including here in Kamloops, in the town of Kamloops. Underneath the building I am living in here is Secwepemc title, even though the land has a private deed on it, because it's part of this here on Hemlock Street. You know, everybody has a private deed. But one of the things you need to realize is that when Delgamuukw was decided, the Supreme Court of Canada said that none of the provincial property rights could ever extinguish Aboriginal title, because if provincial property rights could extinguish Aboriginal title, that would mean that the private property here would have extinguished Secwepemc title that's underneath. But that never happened, because the Supreme Court of Canada said that the province never had jurisdiction to ever extinguish Aboriginal property interest. Therefore, the land still belongs to the Indigenous people, and it's like a layer, it's like a blanket, like it's like the bottom layer is like the mattress, it's like the base, that's Aboriginal title. And if there's Crown title, it sits on top of our Aboriginal title, and it's from that provincial title that they create fee simple, leasehold estates, mineral title, and forestry title, and all these other different interests emanate off of that. But it's the base title that still remains to be Indigenous. The only difference is that through colonization and through racism, Indigenous people don't benefit from the taxes that are being paid from here. Indigenous people should benefit directly from every house on this street, and through this whole town of Kamloops should go to Indigenous people, because they're living on our Aboriginal title of land. So that's one of the things that you need to understand. So that's if title is recognized. And because title has not been recognized, the government has sort of been caught in this position. Well, what happens when you do something that could impact Aboriginal title, but because it's not recognized, can you or can you not continue to do something? And that issue became a part of the legal case called the Haida case. And I think in 2005 or 6 or something, what happened was that Macmillan Bloedel, this big huge lumber company who owned the last of the 20% old growth forest in Haida, wanted to sell that timber license to Weyerhaeuser, another big American lumber company. And they did, but the Haida interceded, saying, no, you can't just sell this timber license from Macmillan Bloedel to Weyerhaeuser without consulting us, because that old growth forest there has a significant meaning to the Haida people in terms of us building our long houses and our boats and, you know, our totem poles and our whole culture centered around the cedar. And we have a real substantive interest in there, and we haven't proven title to Haida, but the fact that this decision is going to impact on us, we feel we should be consulted. And the Supreme Court of Canada agreed. They said that there is a duty on the part of the provincial government to consult with Indigenous people. So it's a legal obligation on the part of the government, the provincial government, federal government, to consult with Indigenous people before any development happens in our area that's going to impact on our people. And that's how come this framework agreement identifies all these different items in the matrix as being those issues that they've identified. Now they've identified them, doesn't mean that we haven't identified them. Like, we need to identify these issues too and carry on. But the thing is that the Reconciliation Framework Agreement is what they call a pre-proof remedy where we're supposed to be involved in discussion things that the province is doing in our territory that can impact on our title. And so that's where the whole process starts. Now, one of the things that's very important for Indigenous people to understand, that is the first step in this whole decision-making process regarding access and benefits to our territory. And you need to be able to hold on to that power in terms of being able to say no to development, because that provides you with the power to be able to get more out of any development that does happen in your territory or region, whether it be to stop a project or if a project is going to go ahead, that you can benefit from that project. And you need to be able to hold those cards close to your chest, and that's not being done. Indigenous people sort of seem to fail to realize that the more pressure you put on government based upon your Aboriginal title and rights, the stronger you're going to protect the economic future and economic security of future generations, because you're going to be pushing back on that 99.64% of power. Like, you need to push back so hard on that. Like, if you really want to improve the quality of decision and life of Indigenous people, if you really want to change the economic circumstances of Indigenous people, we're going to have to push them back at least 51% of this 99.64%. It's a measurable tool, and because that's the land we're talking about right there. We're talking about our own territory. We're talking about these reconciliation framework agreements don't even deal with it. And what I'm saying to, and I don't believe this, you know, like the politicians say, well, you need to go to court to prove title. I don't think you need to go to court. I think we've actually have title here. It's really how do we play the game economically. Because for one thing for sure, that when we were involved in Sun Peaks, the group of people that were there had a tremendous impact on on Sun Peaks, and had a tremendous impact on the regional economy. And I know of all the Indian people in Secwepemc territory decided that they were going to take real strong political action in order to protect their proprietary interests in terms of Aboriginal title and rights in their land, and stop a lot of these developments from happening. That there's going to be a whole new shift in decision making in this country, where you can literally get about around 40 to 50% of decision making power throughout our whole territory. And as soon as you get that, you're going to instantly eliminate poverty, because we're not a large group. We're not a large group. In British Columbia, we're only 200,000 people. You know, British Columbia is larger than California, Oregon, and Washington states combined. And we're only 4.5 million people. 200,000 of them are us. You know what I mean? You could lose the population of British Columbia in Los Angeles. You know what I mean? That's how small we are. You know, so the people that are stealing our land and living in Victoria are not a big group. You know, the fact that Indigenous people are impoverished, in fact that Indigenous people are committing suicide because they have no hope, all these different things, it's just a racist tragedy. Because there's no reason on God's green earth why we have to be poor. There's no reason on God's green earth why we have to be beholden to these kind of silly agreements like the Secwepemc Reconciliation Framework Agreement when we actually own the land. You know, and my biggest feeling is our biggest problem is our lack of confidence that we own our own land. You know, we beat the government on the constitutional level. That's how come Section 35(1). We beat them legally in Delgamo. We beat them on the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Every time those racist colonists come at us, we beat them. But on one small point back home on the reserve, we want to just get stuck on the res. We don't want to mess with the people in town. I've seen that in Sun Peaks. You know, I know that the people in town were telling people on the Sconlet, oh, that chief is a bad chief, you know, this kind of stuff. As soon as the chief gets up and actually tries to do things, he becomes a bad chief. And, this other chief that's signing a deal, oh, he's a good chief, that's a really good chief, you know. And because all they're doing is trying to protect the status quo, they're trying to protect their own business. You know, Indigenous people have to realize that if you want to build an Indigenous economy, we're going to have to reorient decision-making authority locally. Like in Sun Peaks, it should have been the Council of Elders that should have decided whether you're going to be 16,000 bed units or 24,000 bed units. But like, we weren't even involved in that decision. It's the same thing with all of these mines that are coming through. It's the same as Kinder Morgan Pipeline. There's real pressure on us to make a lot of decisions shortly. But the land referral process is really the young people should look at it as it's like the little piece of ice or the big iceberg sticking out. This is the proof that you own the land, is when they have to come to you and get these kind of agreements. You know, it's really how much confidence do you have to take this agreement to build a real solid economic future for yourself, because this is your foothold, is this agreement. Not that you follow it and live by it. No, it's the fact that they have to come and make you sign it that really proves it, that you really own it. It's sort of like it's proof in the pudding in that sense. Anyways, that's what I have to say there.